Ladies and gentlemen of the Academy, I'd like to thank you all in this inaugural Jadu Academy Awards event, which I made up when I was asked to do this presentation. And as the inaugural event, you'll be pleased to hear that Oxford City Council have actually won. And we're really proud of this. We're deeply honoured, although not surprised, to have come first in the category of the project that tried its hardest to fall flat on its face. So, and that's quite an achievement for us. We're quite proud of that, because working with Jadu, they obviously try and scupper that idea as often as they can. So they did their best to take us off track. So what I'm going to do is share some secrets and our sources of inspiration for our wayward ways and the devious ways that Jadu tried to scupper them. And this is going to be, you've all been really quiet today. It's a little bit of interaction here. You've got to shout out the famous faces as you see them. So we're going to start with set an unrealistic timescale. I've talked to a couple of people today who've already dealt with this. So they, and it's a great thing to do. It's a brilliant thing to do. If you set realistic timescales, there's a real chance you're going to actually meet them. So that's the last thing you want to do if you want to win this award. So our inspiration for this. Anyone? Irritable Donkin syndrome, quite. So he's great. I mean, Ian decided that he would totally change the benefits system. And here is his quote. We will have 1 million people on universal credit by April 2014. Anyone know where they got to yet? It's 197,000. And they're going to complete in 2015-16. Everyone will be on, and that's currently forecast for 2020. So within Oxford, obviously, we were deeply inspired by this. Initially, our timescale was set at 6 weeks when we went out to tender. Yeah. Being the naive project manager I was, I managed to haggle that up to 3 months. And I kind of asked, why is it that we're setting a deadline of 6 weeks? And I was told it's because suppliers need a deadline. They need a deadline, or they'll take advantage of you, and they'll just deliver when they want to. So that really worked for us, because it actually took us a year to go. We just went live in January. And just to make things really awkward, Jadu tried to step in and make, we said 12 weeks, that's when we need it by, so they gave us 2 options for actually delivering that, damn them. On a serious side, some of the consequences of that, we didn't do any of the good user testing we know that Jadu can do. There are some advantages which I'll come on to later, but that isn't the best way to start. So tip number 2, have a non-specific specification, or as I entitled this the first time round, be vague. It's good to do this, and I've gone for a really good example here. Some of you might recognise this guy. Why Donald? The Donald? Well, his hair alone is inspirational. But it was this quote that, when I first heard it, I just thought, I don't know what that means. But anyway, so he's called for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives, wait for it, can figure out what the hell is going on. So, irrational and xenophobic, it's kind of a good mix. So this kind of represented where we were going from with our contracts. So while we were doing the tender process, we asked all kinds of questions about what your CMS could do. What we didn't say was what we actually wanted it to do. So that was useful. And also, there was a concept within the council that we were just going to buy a CMS. We didn't really need any design or anything like that. So that actually led to us missing some key functionality, like, I don't know, something that 20% of our users do, which is phone in and ask us when their bin's going to be picked up. So Jadu, again, frustrating our noble efforts, just happened upon giving us a great design, which we really love. And they built us a bin lookup service within the project. But they also pushed us to do some things we hadn't thought about, which was content rewrite. Again, I'm going to come back to that a bit later. So tip number 3, use scope creep. This is a good one. Already we've got no real spec, and we've got an impossibly short timescale. So we're on to a winner, but to make it even worse, we're going to add some more things in. But I need to give you our inspiration, our source of inspiration. You might not know this one. Okay, thank you. I thought, oh no, they're all going to be 16. They won't know who that is. And Caliber had a great way of doing scope creep. So he would deal with his murder suspect and reassure them, that's great, thank you very much, sir. And then he'd utter the immortal phrase, oh, there's just one more thing. I won't do an impression. There's just one more thing. And obviously we use that, because we had no spec, we use that as our basis for deciding what would be in our project. So we came up with something called the Tenants Portal, which is immensely important to us because we're a big council housing provider, and decided, I think after we'd gone live, after we were seriously on the way to going live, that we would now build this in Jadu rather than put it in the tender, which was entertaining. So a separate parallel project was put on the side. And also, after we'd gone live, we decided we want Browse Aloud to be integrated in the site. I can see Beck sweating at the back there, which we've now done. But neither of these things were in our initial spec. So scope creep was great. It really, really padded things out. And again, at Jadu, annoyingly, decided to run around, find the development resource we needed, align the timescales that we arbitrarily set. So at every step, they try to frustrate us on our noble path to falling flat on our face. Missing key deadlines. I bet you won't get this one. Anyway, it's not enough to do all the things we've done, no specification, scope creep, and unrealistic timescale. That's not enough. You need to miss the deadlines you've set that are arbitrary and unrealistic as well. Anyone know this guy? Thank you. This is great. You're doing so well. So George, lovely George. When he started off, he did really great. He managed to do 2 books in 4 years. Things eased off a little bit. He hasn't written anything, or finished anything since 2011, and he's actually missed the deadline for the start of the new Game of Thrones season. But he has this inspirational quote: "I always have trouble with deadlines. For whatever reason, I don't respond well to them." You know, it just touches my heart when I read that. So yes, so we tried to do the same. We tried to be more George. We had some really clear sign-off dates from our project manager about when these things needed to happen to meet our 12-week deadline, like our design sign-off, which we waved to as we went past it. Couldn't get our act together, totally dropped the ball, and I think we went through another 6 iterations of our design before we could all come to an agreement about going forward. And actually the chief exec at one point, saying Matt Colpin's not here, got up with a flip chart and drew how he liked the website. So what you see is what we got, but he made it work. And our Tenants Portal, our lovely scope creep project. So Jadu managed to find a way of integrating that to our go live date. It was great. So all they needed were the things they told us well in advance, that we would need these things by this date. Yeah, we missed those. So we didn't dust off the project. The APIs weren't written. We missed 5 deadlines on that. So yeah, I should probably say at this point, we're on to our 2nd project manager. I think the first one's sheep farming in the Shetlands now, is it? But Bex still has that sort of fixed grin when she talks about Oxford. Okay. This is my favourite. Find a reason not to launch. So, you know, the site's written, we've done it, we've got all the functionality ready to go. But this was about the 5th of November. We decided not to do that. And who was our inspiration for this? Anyone? It's little Jesus himself. This is my desperate attempt to seem more contemporary. Yeah, okay. So, his latest album, I think 3 years in development, and just about to go live, he decided to not release it. With these immortal words, I decided not to sell my album for another week. I'm a fix wolves. So we were away fixing, I don't know what that means either. It's straight off, it's honestly that, with no apostrophe from the either. I mean, this is a genius bit of marketing. I mean, he managed to lose, I think, $10 million in sales from his delay, and everyone's now downloading it for free anyway. So I'm a fix wolves. So we were fixing wolves. We decided that because our Tenants Portal wasn't ready, do you remember the thing we added on and missed the deadlines for? But we couldn't go live without that, so we needed to wait until that was ready. So we actually went live on the 5th of January instead of the 5th of November. And you might think, well, that's okay, everything's done, isn't it? Well, no, because when we were managing 2 sites, so we had our old site, which was still live, and our new site, and because we were ready to go live on the 5th of November, all of our domain name change had happened, so everything had to be done. Well, it's a technical concept. It's not very easy, let's just put it that way. And Chris, who managed bravely in my team to handle all that, had to manage 2 sites for 3 months, and he's still not forgiven me. Yeah. So Jadu couldn't really help us on that one. That was our own fault. So why am I doing all this anyway? You know, it's all a bit of a laugh, isn't it? And Oxford a bit of a case. But actually, I'm doing this for a real reason, which is I actually believe some of these things that I've started to read a lot more about as I get more into this digital role stuff. So these are taken from the DWP's Creating a Digital Culture statement. Working in the open, sharing, not saying fail fast and learn. I want you guys to learn what we did wrong and actually the stuff we got right too. So I think it's really tempting when you're in a council to aim for that really mad deadline because it will satisfy someone or other. I actually spoke to a developer outside of the Jadu community and said it actually took us a year to go live. He said, "Is that all?" And I could have hugged him. I could have hugged the guy. But we actually got loads of things right, which I'm really proud of. I just want to say I'm massively proud of the council. I'm massively proud of my team for what they've achieved. I think our site's amazing. Yeah, that's that. So the first thing we were told we did right was to use a full-time project manager, which was me. Someone Jadu mentioned was using someone one day a week. They were part-time. I don't know how you manage that because it was a full-time role for me. So that might be one thing. If the newbies in the audience, if you've not got someone in at full-time, that may actually help you. We stayed open because we had no specification anyway. We were willing to listen to some of the advice that we got from Jadu, and I like to say to the guys at our end, listen, these guys are experts, they know what they're doing. So if they say this is going to work and this isn't, it's a good idea to listen. And one of the key areas we listened to was on content rewrite. So we had thought magically that the old content was going to suck its way across to the new site somehow. We hadn't put in the spec how, and we were pushed gently at every juncture to consider rewriting ourselves, which is actually what we ended up doing. And I think it's made such a difference in terms of using our voice to talk differently to our public. We've really benefited from that. I've called this semi-agile because you're going to work in a kind of agile state you haven't got a spec to work to anyway. But we were kind of working like that. And putting the customer first. So everything with the content rewrite and everything that Jadu pushed us to do was around stop thinking of the council as this entity and start thinking of the customer and how they want to interact. And it's now the way we talk to our content authors about the way they write content. It really does work. And when we did this, when we did the content rewrite, it was actually 3 of us that did it. Now this probably won't go down well with every council, but we think it made a massive difference. It was a big task, 960 pages. How many documents, Chris? 500? Quite a lot. But what we found with doing it that way was it enabled us to have a single voice and a consistent way of writing our content and creating the document structure as we went. I couldn't imagine having 960 conversations with bits of the council that didn't want to go that way. So we pretty much did it for them and then said, what do you think? And that may sound like madness, but it worked. We've only had 2 comebacks where our events team have said, actually, we don't like that very much. And our waste team really wanted icons. They've got icons now. And we actually had a board to make key decisions. So that idea of we're going to write the content for other people, our board said, yeah, that works for us. And that's a sensible way of going forward. So it was nice to have that bit of backing when we went into battle, which was very infrequently, to make that work for us. So that is my experience. I'm happy to take questions because I've probably rattled through that in 10 minutes, and I've got half an hour apparently. So any questions about George Martin? No? Karen?
What's the member involvement like, elected member involvement and feedback?
I was just talking to a colleague from Birmingham, they're just doing their member demos at the moment. And the thing he said to me that really chimed with me is we're not going into that meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, for them to make a decision. It's just to let them know what we've done. And that's how we approached it as well. With the problems we had in design sign-off, there was no way we could let 40-odd members decide, well, actually, I like pink and not blue. It just wasn't going to happen. So we had to go to them confidently to say, this is how it's going to look when it goes live. And actually, that worked really well for us. We've got nothing but nice feedback. I think people are kind of happy to see something when it's there. If you give them a blank sheet, I'm not sure if that will work. But that's how it worked for us. Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.